In this Clash of Clans video, we are going to be looking at the best Town Hall 11 attack strategy in the game right now. We are going to break this down for you, give you tips and tricks throughout so that you can get the 3 stars. So without further ado, let's get into it. Alrighty guys, let's dive straight into this one. The strategy we are talking about is the PEKKA BoBat. Now we do have a couple of different variations across a couple of different base designs, so be sure to stick around for them all. The funnel is your key aspect of starting this attack, and you can see the buildings here are a little bit squished together. It's not just the outside buildings we need to deal with. These buildings here relatively easy to take out. However, the archer tower and cannon are there to purely try and mess up your funnel. Now, whilst you can send a PEKKA in order to take that down, a baby dragon to tank the archer tower followed by them loons meant we were easily able to take out this area. And look now, the queen will be drawn this way and then later on into the base. Notice how we position the queen here as well, so she can shoot these buildings before then drawing this way, which means it's just an even greater distance that she is not going to go to the buildings at the top. Guys, if you are new to my channel, be sure to subscribe for all of my Clash of Clans videos. I do try and break down these attacks as best as possible and turn on that notification bell so you don't miss out. Now notice how the other side of the base has the king coming in here. That's essentially to set up the funnel on the other side, meaning that our troops can then be drawn into the base itself. Looking pretty simplistic at the moment, but you've got to get the funnel right. You can't mess that up. If your Pekkas and bowlers end up walking around the outside, you're not going to be able to control your bats through the base, and you're probably not going to get the 3 stars. However, the king's ability is pressed. He does a fantastic job down that side of the base, and we're targeting these multi-infernos. Now, we are going to basically control the bowlers up to this top area of the base. Now, that's just because it's easier once they get into this middle compartment to shoot over to that area. You've got to be aware of where the bowlers will be drawn to. But what that does mean is we can target this multi straight away with the bat spells, and we know that they're going to be drawn up and around this area, meaning we have wizard towers to contend with, and that is where the freeze spells will come in. Now, do not forget about troops on the outside of the base that you can use to distract the wizard towers, as the ice golem does in this situation, coming across and wiping things out. Unfortunately, the big pack of bats that came across to the wizard tower here somehow went down. Now, I can't see in the replay exactly why they go down. The wizard tower is frozen. Maybe it turns and gets a single shot. I'm not quite sure. Maybe have a quick rewind back and see if you can let me know. But I don't know how them bats went down. Anyway, it doesn't matter, because Ketamingo here is getting the job done. Because the bowlers were funneled this way and the bats dealt with this top area, we have more than enough for them to come around. And as long as you gut the core of the base and you've just got defenses on the outside here, your troops can shoot across to them and it is not a problem. Do not forget about cleanup troops either, guys, because the PEKKA BoBat is a strategy which you can quite easily run out of time if you are not careful. However, let's move on to another example. Okay guys, you might notice that this base design is a little bit more compact. The strategy itself and troop composition does vary, but again, I will be showing you different variations of the strategy and explaining them for that base design, but the general fundamentals are the same. So firstly, the funnel is getting set. Will does a fantastic job here using the king over on this 3 o'clock area. Now, the king is a fantastic one to create that funnel, because with the ability, he can create such a large funnel on the outside of the base. He's incredibly tanky, and because you've got the Pekkas on the inside of the base, you don't necessarily need him to tank. Looking at the 6 o'clock area, again, we've got numerous levels of buildings down in this area. It's not just one layer of buildings on the outside. That's relatively easy to create the funnel. If we did not take down these buildings, there is a high possibility that the bowlers would walk. Once they've walked to the cannon, it's incredibly difficult to get them back in because they will continue to walk. So in the first example, we used the baby dragon with the loons. In this one, we use the Pekkas, because again, the Pekkas go for any buildings. It's quite easy to create their pathing and predict their pathing. If this cannon had have not gone down, there's a good chance the bowlers would have walked, but we got it just in time. Will is now pressing right into the center of the base, and again going to cut the inside of the core completely out. The queen is down, the CC is down. We take a jump spell in this one as well to get that little bit further, because we've got 3 wizard towers here. We need to try and get into that middle of the base to start taking them down. Also get the eagle artillery as a bonus. Now guys, if you are wanting to join Crunch Time, that is where all of these attacks are from. We compete in the CWL invite. Please go ahead and join my Discord server. It's linked down below with my social media platforms. You can find everything you need for joining the clans that I cover. Now, what I want you to focus on here as well, the bats have now came in at 6 o'clock, as you can see, is the patience that Will had. So he waited until there was this thin strip of defenses down here where the bats could be controlled through. What you don't want is to have defenses left up here, because what ends up happening, your bats come in, then some of them split this way, some go this way, then again these bats might then split, and before you know it, you've got 3 or 4 groups of bats, which is inefficient. You need to keep them together in order to maximize their DPS. They want to just go through the defenses like clockwork, and actually they came in at perfect timing here, whereby that funnel for the bats to come down and around was set, but actually the bowlers kept on moving through the base and kept on taking out these defenses as the bats came through, and they both kind of merged together. The timing can be hard to get, and it doesn't have to always be like down to the millisecond, guys. There is a bit of flexibility there, but do try and merge them in quite well. Get that funnel created for the bats, but try and protect the troops in the middle as well. You did see in that first attack that actually the bats went down, so you do want to try and protect the troops in the middle, but clearly you do not want your bats to go down either. Now again, do think about cleanup. If your bats do go down and the Pekkas end up punching outside of the base here, what you don't want is them having to walk all of the way around to the other buildings. So get some cleanup troops in order to help with that. But let's move on to a different base design. Okay, next we have Captain DF coming up against this rather tricky base design, and again look at the amount of buildings on the outside here that we've got to get that funnel correct for. Now the Pekka, again, whilst it can be used as a great funneling troop, it tanks extremely well, so a couple of wizards behind can speed up that process and just get them buildings down so much quicker. Now do be careful with this. Notice how the healers obviously go to the Pekka. They will go to the troop that is damaged within that area, so you can quite easily lose your healers. Pekka ends up going down and we get the healers back to the queen. Again, the queen is a fantastic troop for creating that funnel herself, because she can reach these buildings, which can sometimes draw your bowlers around, which is clearly not what you want. You've just got to appreciate that that takes a little bit of time for the queen to do as well, but fantastic value. King, as we've well established, down at the bottom of the base to cut the funnel on the other side. Again, let's just say you create the funnel on this area, you might have them coming down this way perfectly. If you do not then take out this area, there's nothing to force them into the base. They may just continue to come around, which is clearly not what you want. The wall wrecker and the position of the town hall means that we have this slight offset towards the left hand side of the base, so we know this right hand side is going to be left open. Now whilst a couple of the bowlers decide for some strange reason to go over there and get drawn to that multi, or the piece of wall should we say, and just happen to bounce the multi, they end up going down and the bats end up doing the job over there anyway. So they come into that area where we can now get a wave formation. You do not want to take any damage from the splash if you can help it, so do get them freeze spells in quicker. And the reason a wave technique can be good is that you're not coming into the center of the base and taking damage from each and every angle. You can allow the bats to actually gain in their momentum, and that's exactly what you need, unless you are using the bats to path the bowlers. So let's say we had to take down this area in order to press the bowlers up this other way because they were drawn on over here, weren't we? Then we could have used the bats just in one area, but it's not quite as effective as if you can create that little gap of defenses and just swoop around, which is exactly what you do with the PEKKA BoBat. Now remember, you don't have to have the bats on the back end. It is actually a nice touch. It tends to work well, but if you need a lot of spells in the base and for that kill squad, you might decide to just press all of the way through. But let's move to the next attack. We are not messing around. A 6-pack it is. Whilst this base design is relatively similar to the last one, obviously quite a few differences to be fair, the attack strategy itself and how it is performed is very different. So I did want to explain to you exactly why that is. Now starting off, you can see the multi-inferno is kind of set into the base a little bit. So we're able to snipe off some buildings using archer, wizard, a baby dragon. That sets up that funnel, and don't overcommit. Try and set up your funnel as cheaply as possible. If that is just the Arch Queen herself, perfect. Maybe you can use just a couple of troops as in this example, but don't skimp on the funnel either. Make sure you get it set, because if you don't and your troops walk, it's very hard to correct it. You can always use the troops that you don't use for the funnel as part of your cleanup. And if you're using a PEKKA to funnel, you've got to use that PEKKA for the funnel rather than in the base itself. Otherwise, if your troops walk, you might have just lost it altogether. So again, the queen creates a good funnel, taking out these buildings on the inside. You've seen the king down this side. That's going to be pretty clockwork for you. You're going to be doing that with this strategy. But I like how a baby dragon is in there as well, just to supplement. If you can use a baby dragon with its enraged bonus, then go ahead and do that alongside the king. It can be a fantastic troop to support. Notice how we on this base design did not the same as the last one. We have this area in the middle where we're getting the troops into, where we can then directly target the multi-infernos. Now on the last one, we sent the bats up to this area, which you could do, guys, but once you're in the middle of the base, again, we're not rushing at this point. Let's pause. If we were to send the bats in at this point, there's a good chance some of them would split either way from this area, and again, once they get over to here, they might start to split a little bit. Not to mention, there's a huge amount of splash damage in this area, and that is exactly what I'm explaining to you right now. Just waits, gets the infernos, and because the bowlers are in the middle, they are going to be drawn across and can take out the splash. We're far better off sending the bats up to this top area where there's a huge amount of DPS, but it's actually not going to do a lot for the bats. The bats can just zap their way straight through that. There's no splash damage. We don't have to worry about it. However, if we had Pekkas and bowlers walking around to this top area, this would have been a nightmare for them. So I do like how this one was worked in terms of just flipping the way the bats came in. Again, that ice golem to tank the wizard tower didn't even need the freeze spells, and again we have bats on the outside. We've got the Pekkas broken out, and this was just a perfect example of the PEKKA BoBat. And hopefully from explaining the different aspects of the attack across different base layouts, you're starting to get the idea as to how to do it. You can see the similarities in what we're going for, taking out that core of the base, getting the queen, the CC, any splash damage you can, and creating that thin area for the bats. But let's move to the next one. Okay, so for this one, we actually have the most clutch moment of the bats I have seen in quite some time. Now, starting off the attack, by the way, the 11s from Crunch Time were on fire in this war. Massive GG, but we actually start with a quick king swap before the king continues to create that funnel. Now, one of the reasons that if a hero is on the outside, you might want to take that out is purely because it can aggro your Pekka and bowlers as you're trying to get into the base. Now, if you can, when you're creating the funnel, you kind of want to come from a flat side if you're new to this strategy, because it can be hard to get that funnel from the corner of a base, basically because there's not as many buildings here to actually draw your troops in. We create the funnel as best as possible here, but as you can see, some bowlers still walk, and some of them then decide to still come out. Wall Wrecker didn't quite get that wall compartment up early enough, or down should we say, and the troops can now power through. The Pekkas themselves, especially against multi-infernos, have more than than enough firepower to get through. They're not really going to go anywhere, especially with the healers. They will just keep on charging forward. So even with the bowlers walking, we tend to be okay here. Now notice the early deployment of the ice golem at the top, trying to tank this wizard tower. It actually moves right across to the mortar. Probably needed to just be that little bit further across, I guess, in order for it to be targeting down here. But the early deployment was there because you've got to factor in travel time before it actually gets across to the wizard tower. Remember, the bats are incredibly quick. Now look at this, puts the minions in, and do be cautious of this. It does trigger the red air bomb, which the bats themselves won't trigger a red air bomb, but if you trigger it somewhere else, it can then go for the bats. But the bats, they don't like it in this replay. They are super quick. If you can get through the defenses quick enough, as you will see, that red air bomb is really not going to do anything. Does start taking a little bit of fire from the multi-inferno, but actually that goes down to the P.E.K.K.As quick enough, and it's not until the bats start to split that they get hit by the red air bomb. And obviously at that point, it's a little bit less troublesome because we've still got some to come through the base. We did have to use them freeze spells early on, so we don't have enough for that final wizard tower, but notice how important these troops at the top are for cleanup. Imagine this attack if we had to rely just on the bowlers left up and the P.E.K.K.As coming through the base here. We'd time fail. So do have the troops on the outside for cleanup. Not to mention, let's say it's the clan war leagues and you're trying to get as high as possibility of a percentage, you might not actually get the 3-star, but all of these buildings here are free. You've taken out the defenses in that area. Wizards, minions, anything like that work well to take down that area. Now obviously the wall wrecker is your main siege machine for this attack. It allows your bowlers and P.E.K.K.As to get through the base. If you do not have access to it, this strategy will definitely still work. You're not going to have as good a success rate, obviously, because you don't have that weapon of choice in your arsenal, but actually you can still use wall breakers, jump spells. You just then have to think about your spells more. You might have less bats or freeze spells, but you can definitely still get it done. And again, you don't always need the bats. If you have to commit more than just a rage spell and a poison spell on that initial push, maybe there's a lot in that area, you might have to then just go with the P.E.K.K.As and bowlers right through the base and actually not take the bat spells. But I hope that one has helped you. If you want to see the top list of Town Hall 11 attacks, not just this one, but a top list, I've linked it on your screen. I'd highly recommend that one. But that is going to wrap it up for this. Until next time, guys, peace out.